You're in a room. Maybe it's a meeting room, maybe it's a classroom, maybe it's the family dinner table on a Sunday. It doesn't really matter which room came to your mind just now, because you did picture one. I know you did. And in that room, there are people, and you're about to say something. Did your heart speed up just from hearing that? Then you already know what we're talking about today. But before we go any further, I need you to do one thing for me. Just one. Take a deep breath. Not the kind of rushed breathing we do all day without noticing. That shallow chest breathing that barely reaches the lungs. No, a real breath. Let your belly expand. Hold it for 2 seconds, then let it out slowly through your mouth. Do it now. All right. You just did something surprisingly brave. You stopped. For 2 seconds, you weren't rushing. You weren't defending yourself. You weren't explaining yourself to that invisible audience that lives inside your head. You just stopped. That's rarer than it should be, because people who live with the fear of being judged rarely stop. The mind is always working, always processing, replaying what you said, preparing what you might say next, measuring the tone, the exact word, the right facial expression. It's exhausting. It's like working a double shift every single day. Except the job is you, trying to become acceptable to a jury you've never met, never invited, but that somehow never leaves the room. And the most painful part, most of the time that jury doesn't even exist outside your own mind. Stay with me, because today we're going to go deeper into this. Not on the surface, not with a list of tips you've already seen somewhere else that worked for 3 days and then disappeared. We're going to the root, to the original scene, the moment this fear was planted, and how it slowly grew until it started taking up more space in your life than it should have, often without you even noticing. And more than that, we're going to build something together, a real path for the next 30 days, with concrete steps, with a clear idea of what each week might feel like, with honesty about what will be hard and what might surprise you. There's no magic formula here, but there is a process, and processes work when you stay with them. So stay with me. You don't need to be healed to start. You just need to be here. And you already are. Before anything else, there's something I need to tell you. Something that maybe no one has ever said to you clearly enough. The fear of being judged is not a character flaw. It's not you being weak. It's not you being too sensitive. And it's not just low self-esteem that you should somehow fix if you tried harder. It's a real neurological response. Old, deeply human. At some point in your story, that response got turned up way louder than it should have. And when something gets that loud, there's always a reason. It has an origin. It has a name. And when something has a name, it starts to lose its power. But we'll get there. For now, just breathe. And let me tell you a story about someone you're going to recognize. Before we get into the story, I want to pause here with you for a moment. We live in a fast world, and when the subject is anxiety, fear, vulnerability, there's a strong pull to fix it quickly, to find the hack, the trick, the technique that's supposed to work in 5 minutes. I understand that impulse, because when you're hurting, the last thing you want to hear is, "This takes time." But I'd be lying to you if I pretended there's a real shortcut here. The fear of being judged didn't appear overnight. It was built slowly, sometimes over years, sometimes over decades. Every moment you were corrected in front of other people, every time you spoke and someone laughed, every awkward silence after you shared an opinion, every look you interpreted as criticism, every compliment that arrived too late or never arrived at all. Experiences like that don't disappear the moment you decide you want to be different. They stay stored in the body, in memory, in the way you hesitate before speaking, in the way you reread a message 4 times before sending it, in that tight feeling in your stomach when someone calls your name in a meeting. So what I'm asking from you right now is just one thing: permission to slow down, not because you're weak, but because truly understanding something in a way that changes how you act, not just how you think, requires depth, and you deserve that. So, take another breath, and let me tell you about Lucas. Lucas is 31. He works as a data analyst at a mid-sized tech company. He's good at what he does. That's not the problem. The problem is that every Monday morning, when he knows there's a team meeting at 9, he wakes up at 6:45 with a feeling in his chest he's never really known how to name. It's not pain. It's not exactly fear either. It's more like wait, like the day is already starting in the red. He lies there for another 10 minutes, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. His phone is on the nightstand. His thumb slides across the screen before any real decision happens. There's a message from his manager. Move the meeting to 8:30. Need to align on Q4. Lucas stares at the message for 43 seconds. He counted later without meaning to. Here's what went through his head during those 43 seconds. He's going to have to talk about the unfinished report. His manager will probably make that face, the one where he frowns slightly, not angry, just concerned, and somehow that feels worse than anger, because Lucas won't know what it means. Someone might ask a question he doesn't know how to answer. There'll be a silence, and inside that silence, everyone will realize he's not actually good enough. He types, "Okay, I'll be there." Then he drops the phone. In the shower, while the water warms up, he's already rehearsing. The report is in the final phase. Just a few consistency adjustments left. No, too vague. I ran into an issue with the secondary data source. Better. Sounds technical, reasonable. He repeats it 3 times, then 2 more. Then he starts imagining the question that might come next and prepares the answer for that too. By the time he gets out of the shower, he's already tired. 40 minutes later, he's on the subway. A woman gets on carrying a large bag and holding the hand of a small child. There are no empty seats. Lucas looks at her, looks at his seat. He wants to stand up, but then another thought appears. What if she doesn't want the seat? What if someone sees the gesture and judges it in some way he didn't predict? So he stays seated. Another passenger stands up without thinking twice. Lucas looks out the window with that feeling that isn't exactly guilt, but lives in the same neighborhood. At the meeting, he chooses a chair in the middle of the table, not the head, not the end, a place that minimizes exposure without looking like he's hiding. This isn't a conscious thought. He doesn't know he's thinking this way, but he is. 20 minutes in, the manager looks around the room. "Lucas, how's the Q3 report coming?" 7 pairs of eyes, but it feels like 18. The report's in the final phase. I had a few consistency adjustments with the secondary data source. I'll finish it this afternoon. The rehearsed sentence. It came out clean. The manager nods. Great, send it by 4, and moves on. The meeting ends at 9:22. Lucas walks back to his desk and spends 3 minutes processing what just happened, which was completely normal. No problem, no criticism. No real judgment, but his body is still on alert. His shoulders are still tight. By the afternoon, the report is finished at 3:48. He rereads it once, twice, 3 times, moves a comma, moves it back. He stares at the send button for almost 2 minutes. Then he clicks. Great, thanks. The reply arrives 30 seconds later. 2 words. Lucas feels relief. It lasts maybe 4 minutes, and before his mind finds something else to worry about. That's Lucas's day. A normal day. No real conflict, no real criticism, no real rejection, completely functional. And yet it costs him an amount of emotional energy he'll probably never measure, because he's never stopped to measure it. And the most important part is this. Lucas doesn't know he lives like this. He just thinks he's kind of shy, that he doesn't like meetings, that he prefers working alone. He's never connected those preferences to the fear of being judged, the quiet force guiding almost every small decision in his day. Have you ever made that connection? Now I need to show you something that might be uncomfortable to look at. What Lucas lives with, that constant vigilance, that endless mental rehearsal, that obsessive reading of faces, silences, messages, isn't just emotional discomfort. It's an alarm system that got stuck in the on position. Think of it this way. Your body's alarm system was designed for one very specific purpose. When there's a real threat, physical danger, a survival situation, your brain releases a cascade of hormone, adrenaline, cortisol. Your heart speeds up, your muscles get ready, your attention narrows, you become hyper alert. That's the fight or flight system. It's brilliant, it's ancient, it's saved your ancestors' lives countless times. The problem is that the modern human brain isn't very good at telling the difference between "there's a predator behind me in the forest" and "my manager is about to ask me a question in a meeting." For a nervous system wired with social anxiety, both can trigger the same response, sometimes with almost the same intensity, which means that during that Monday meeting, Lucas spent roughly the same biological energy as someone escaping an actual threat for a completely normal work meeting. Now multiply that across every interaction in his day. The message he reread 4 times before sending. Alarm. The co-worker who casually said, "All good." Alarm. The colleague's polished slide presentation. Alarm. The send button on the report. Alarm. Each of those moments, things that would pass through someone else's day without leaving a trace, becomes a small emergency activation for Lucas. And maybe for you too, small releases of cortisol, small spikes in heart rate, small tensions building in the shoulders, the jaw, the neck, and the body keeps score. At the end of a day like Lucas's, he comes home physically tired, even though he didn't do anything physically exhausting. There's a kind of mental fog. He scrolls on his phone, but nothing really lands. He wants to talk to someone but doesn't have the energy. He wants to relax, but his body is still slightly on edge because the alarm system never fully turned off. There's a clinical term for this, autonomic nervous system hyperarousal, but you don't need the clinical term to recognize the feeling. Have you ever felt exhausted after a day where you technically did nothing special? Have you had a headache at the end of a social day with no clear physical reason? Have your shoulders ached at 10 at night after a normal office day? Have you woken up tired after a full night of sleep because your mind never really shut down? Those are physical signs of an alarm system that's been running too long. And here's the part that's hardest to look at once you see it clearly. This system isn't protecting you. It's costing you. It's costing you energy that could go somewhere else, into creativity, into actually being present in conversations, into real connections with people, into work that comes from clarity, not from compulsive perfectionism, but from being fully there, not from constantly scanning the environment for threats. Let me give you 2 more examples besides Lucas, because this needs to become real. Think about Camilla. She's 26. She's in grad school, smart, focused, dedicated. Every time the professor asks an open question to the class, Camilla knows the answer. Often she knows it better than the person who eventually speaks. But she doesn't raise her hand. She looks down at her notebook at the side of the room, not because she doesn't know. Because if she answers and the answer is wrong, or correct but phrased awkwardly, or correct but the professor frowns for some reason she didn't anticipate, that moment will stay with her for days. It'll show up at 2 in the morning when she's trying to sleep. It'll be the kind of memory that returns without being invited. So she chooses silence, always silence, and over time, the silence becomes an identity. Camilla is quiet. Camilla is reserved, but Camilla isn't quiet. Camilla has an alarm system that convinced her speaking is dangerous. Now think about Rodrigo, 42, married, 2 kids. He's worked at the same company for 15 years. At a family gathering, someone makes a light joke at his expense. Nothing serious. The kind of teasing that happens in almost every family. Everyone laughs. Rodrigo laughs too, on the outside. But inside, he spends the rest of the evening replaying it. Was it mean? Was it intentional? What did everyone else think? Did they agree? Should he have said something? What would he even say? If he had responded, would it have sounded awkward? Rodrigo goes home still processing. He wakes up the next morning still processing. 3 different people, 1 identical pattern, an alarm system firing at social threats that, rationally, don't justify the intensity of the response. And the accumulated cost of that pattern, in energy and missed opportunities, in conversations that never reach real depth, because there's always an invisible wall of self-monitoring. That cost is real, and it's high, but this alarm system didn't install itself by accident. It has an origin, and that's where we're going next. The shadow has a name, and when something has a name, it starts to lose its power. In the case of the fear of judgment, the name is this: I am acceptable only if I perform well. Read that again, slowly. I am acceptable only if I perform well. Not, I like doing things well. Not, I take pride in my work. Those would be healthy. The shadow's version is different. My value as a person depends on how other people evaluate me. If I make a mistake, if I disappoint someone, if I sound awkward or look incompetent, then I lose the right to be accepted, to be loved. to belong. That's the core. That's the belief running the alarm system. And it's not a belief anyone chooses consciously. Nobody wakes up one day and decides to believe this. It gets built, brick by brick, experience by experience, usually in childhood. Let me show you where something like this begins. Not Lucas's exact story, because everyone has their own scene. But this is the kind of moment where the seed gets planted. Lucas is 8 years old. He's sitting in a classroom. The teacher asks each student to read a paragraph out loud. Lucas is third in line. He's following along in the book. He almost knows the paragraph by heart. It's about the water cycle, a topic he studied. When it's his turn, he starts reading. By the third line, he stumbles on a word, evaporation, just a fraction of hesitation. Two classmates laugh. Not loudly, not cruelly, just the kind of automatic little laugh 8-year-olds make without thinking. The teacher doesn't react. She just continues the lesson. Lucas finishes the paragraph. He sits down. The class continues like nothing happened, but something stayed. It wasn't trauma. It wasn't bullying. It was a fraction of hesitation and a small laugh that lasted less than 3 seconds. But Lucas's 8-year-old brain didn't process it as a small moment that passed. It processed it as, when I made a mistake in front of others, I was ridiculed. And the conclusion, the one that was never spoken out loud, never fully formed into a sentence, became, then I shouldn't make mistakes in front of other people. And that's when the monitoring system started to form. The next year, when the teacher asked an open question, Lucas waited 1 extra second before raising his hand. Just 1 second, to check, to be sure he knew. At 12, he reread his assignments twice before handing them in. At 15, before speaking in a group discussion, he formed the entire sentence in his head before opening his mouth. At 18, in his first internship interview, he rehearsed his answers for 3 hours. At 31, he spends 43 seconds staring at a simple message before replying. Each step seemed reasonable. Each step looked like being more prepared, more careful, more responsible. But what was actually being built was armor that started as protection and slowly turned into a prison. And the most important part is this: Lucas never connected the 31-year-old man who hesitates before sending reports with the 8-year-old boy who stumbled on a word. That connection was never made. The shadow stayed in the dark, unnamed, unexamined, operating quietly beneath the surface, as if it were simply part of his personality, as if Lucas was just like that. But he's not like that. He learned it, and what was learned can be relearned. Your scene might be different. Maybe it didn't happen in a classroom. Maybe it happened at home. A father correcting you in front of others, a mother comparing you to a sibling, a grandparent laughing at your ideas without realizing the impact. Maybe it was on a sports team where mistakes meant being pulled out of the game. Maybe it was among friends where a joke about you turned into a nickname that lasted years. Or maybe it was something quieter, an environment where praise was rare and criticism was frequent, and the conclusion slowly formed. The default state is inadequacy. Approval has to be earned. It can't be assumed. The details change. The shadow is the same. My value depends on my social performance. And in the dark, that shadow keeps operating. It keeps triggering the alarm. It keeps activating fight or flight for work meetings, simple messages, hallway conversations, even the decision of whether to stand up and offer your seat on the subway. But here's what changes when you name it. The shadow loses the illusion of being the truth. When you start seeing the belief as a belief, not reality, a tiny space appears between you and it, just a millimeter. But that millimeter is where change begins. There's a character that lives inside people who fear being judged. I call him the waiting adult. He's not a villain. He's not some malicious saboteur. He's a child who grew up biologically, but emotionally, in moments of social exposure, he's still sitting in that classroom at 8 years old, still waiting to see if he's about to be laughed at. This inner character still processes approval and rejection with the intensity of someone who has no other safety net except other people's acceptance. Because when he was 8, he really didn't. Children depend on approval from adults and from the group to survive. That's not a metaphor, it's biological. A child rejected by the group throughout most of human history was in real danger. So the child brain treats social exclusion like a survival threat, because for a very long time it was. Which means the monitoring system Lucas developed as a child wasn't dysfunctional. It was adaptive, it was intelligent. It was the best strategy he had for navigating a world where making mistakes in public had a real cost. Even if that cost seems small to an adult today, for him back then it wasn't. The problem is that the system was never updated. The waiting adult is still running 8-year-old software. So Lucas, at 31, reacts to a work meeting with the same emotional alertness as a child who's trying not to be laughed at by classmates. Let me show you what this archetype looks like in real life. 2 simple scenes. First scene, a dinner with friends. 6 people around the table. Someone tells a funny story. Everyone laughs. The conversation flows easily. Then there's a natural pause, the kind of moment where anyone could jump in with a story. Lucas has one. It's actually a good one. He knows it's good because he told it to his sister once and she genuinely laughed, but he hesitates. The waiting adult starts doing the math. What if nobody finds it funny? What if the story takes too long? What if it interrupts the flow? The moment passes. Someone else jumps in with another story. The window closes. Lucas listens, laughs at the right moments, participates in a safe way. Reactions, not initiatives. Then he goes home with a faint feeling that he somehow stood just outside the experience without being able to name exactly why. Second scene, a work discussion over email. The manager asks the team for opinions about a new approach. People start replying. Lucas reads every message. He has a different perspective, technical, thoughtful, something he genuinely believes would improve the process. He starts writing the email. Reads it again, it sounds too direct. He softens the wording, reads it again. Now it sounds like he's contradicting the manager. He softens it more, reads it again. Now it's not even clear what he's saying. He closes the email, doesn't send it. At the next meeting, the manager moves forward with the original approach. A week later, the exact problem Lucas had noticed shows up. The manager asks the team for solutions. Lucas explains the idea he had earlier. The manager says, "That's exactly what we needed. Why didn't you say this before?" Lucas doesn't know how to answer that. Not out loud. The waiting adult isn't malicious. He's scared. And what a scared part of you needs isn't pressure, it isn't criticism, it's repeated evidence that the danger it fears isn't actually there, or that even when it is, it's manageable, that you survive mistakes, that your worth doesn't disappear when you say something awkward or express a different opinion. But that kind of evidence doesn't come from convincing your rational mind. It comes from experience, repeated experience, gradual exposure, 30 days of small pieces of proof. And that's exactly what we're about to build. Look at this closely, because this is where most people who try to work on the fear of judgment slip without even realizing it. The trap has a name: avoidance as relief. Here's how it works. You have social anxiety. You know certain situations trigger the alarm. Meetings, parties, difficult conversations, sending your work, speaking in front of others, raising your hand. So naturally, you start avoiding those situations, or you minimize your participation, or you find ways to be present without really exposing yourself. And in the short term, it works perfectly. You skip the party and you don't feel the anxiety of the party. You don't raise your hand and you don't feel the panic of possibly being wrong. You don't send the email with the different opinion and you don't have to face the possibility of disapproval. The relief is immediate. It's real, it's powerful, and it's a trap. Because every time you avoid something and feel that relief, your brain learns a lesson. Avoidance worked, and it stores that information. The situation I avoided must have been dangerous because I felt better when I escaped it. So the belief that the situation is dangerous gets stronger. Your anxiety threshold drops. Next time, it doesn't even have to be the big meeting. Just walking down the hallway where you might run into your manager is enough. Then it's just the building. Then it's just the thought of going to work. This isn't exaggeration. It's the documented progression of untreated anxiety disorders. Your circle of safety slowly shrinks. Everything outside your comfort zone gets bigger and your life gets smaller. The trap isn't anxiety itself. The trap is the relief strategy that seems to work, but actually feeds the problem. And there's an even subtler version of this trap that's harder to notice. Safety behaviors inside the situation. Lucas doesn't avoid the meeting. He goes with safety behaviors, sitting in the middle of the table, preparing sentences ahead of time, writing down things he already knows, looking at his notebook when he doesn't want to be called on. Camilla goes to class, but when the professor asks questions, her eyes stay on her notebook. Rodrigo goes to the family gathering, but he stays next to his spouse the whole time, a kind of social shield. These behaviors make the moment feel more manageable, but they send a message to the alarm system. This situation really was dangerous because I needed protection, so the alarm never learns to turn off. It learns that it must stay on while you carefully manage the exposure. Did you recognize anything there? The way out isn't throwing yourself into every situation all at once. That rarely works and often makes things worse. The way out is gradual, intentional, accompanied by understanding. You expose yourself just a little more than your comfort asks for. You let the alarm activate, and you stay in the situation long enough for your brain to register something new. I survived. It wasn't what the alarm predicted. I can update the danger level. That's what the next 30 days are about. Before we get into the weeks, we need to set the foundation. You're not trying to eliminate social anxiety. You're not trying to become an extrovert. What you're doing is training your nervous system to stop treating normal social interactions like survival threats. This is neurological before it's behavioral. Behavior changes when the nervous system updates its sense of safety, and that update comes from repeated evidence, not from intellectual understanding. You might know rationally that a meeting isn't dangerous, but if your body has never had the experience of being exposed and coming out fine, the deeper instinctive evaluation doesn't change. The next 4 weeks are designed to create those experiences, small ones, gradual ones, stacked on top of each other. Each one becomes new data for your nervous system. Each one says the same thing: you were exposed and you survived. One last thing before we start. You're going to feel discomfort. That doesn't mean something is going wrong. It means something is working. Discomfort is where the shift happens. Week 1, observe without judging. The first week isn't about action, it's about awareness. The fear of judgment runs on autopilot. You don't decide to feel anxious before sending an email. The anxiety is already there before you even think about it. So before you can work with the system, you need to be able to observe it. Daily practice. The alarm log. Once a day, in the evening, 10 minutes. Write down 3 things. First, one situation from the day when the alarm went off. It can be small. Any moment where you felt your body tighten, hesitated, avoided something, or used a safety behavior. Second, what the alarm was predicting, not what actually happened. The feared scenario. Someone will think my work is bad. She'll ask me something I don't know. Put it into words. Third, what actually happened, just the facts. He replied, "Thanks. She just wanted to confirm the time." You do this for 7 days. At the end of the week, read everything in one sitting. You'll start to see the pattern. What the alarm predicts and what actually happens are usually very different things. Daily exposure challenge. 1 micro exposure per day. Very small. Make a comment in a group conversation where you normally just listen. Reply to an email the same day instead of postponing it. Ask a question, even if it feels obvious. Hold eye contact 2 seconds longer than usual. The goal isn't difficult. The goal is mild discomfort, and doing it without safety behaviors. Week 2. Step into the discomfort. You spent a week observing. Now you begin entering situations with fewer safety behaviors. Your exposure map. At the beginning of week 2, write down 10 situations that trigger the alarm. Order them from least intense to most intense. Examples might look like this: replying with a voice message instead of text, sharing a different opinion in a small group, presenting something without rehearsing it excessively, disagreeing with a manager in a meeting, talking about something that matters to you with someone who might not agree. The list is personal. No one else needs to see it. During week 2, work with the first 4 items, at least 1 per day. Enter the situation. Feel the discomfort. Resist the safety behaviors as much as you can. And stay long enough for the discomfort to begin. Not end, just begin to fade. The alarm will sound. Stay, breathe. Anxiety comes in waves rise, and waves pass. After each exposure, write in your log, did the alarm predict correctly, or was reality different? About self-punishment. You're going to do imperfect exposures. Sometimes you'll fall back into safety behaviors without noticing. When that happens, the exercise isn't criticizing yourself. It's simply writing, today I avoided. Next time I want to try differently. Neutral observation. That's it. Week 3. Raise the level. Week 3 is for items 5 through 8 on your list. Situations with more exposure, bigger groups, conversations that matter more, but now you have something you didn't have before. 2 weeks of data, actual proof, written down that the alarm has been wrong many times. Your nervous system registers that too. The pause before the safety behavior. When you notice you're about to use a safety behavior, minimizing your point with, this might not be ideal, but agreeing with something you don't really agree with. Checking your phone to avoid eye contact. Pause. 2 to 5 seconds. You don't necessarily have to stop the behavior, but you do have to make it conscious. The moment you break the automatic pattern, you create space for choice. The difficult conversation. This week, you'll have one conversation you've been avoiding. Just one. Maybe telling someone honestly why you didn't attend an event instead of inventing an excuse. Maybe giving real feedback when someone asks for your opinion. Anything you normally avoid because you're afraid of the reaction. Afterward, notice 2 things: how the other person actually reacted and how you felt afterward. There's a certain lightness that comes after honesty. The alarm system rarely lets you experience it when it's running the show. Week 4. Consolidate and reorient. Week 4 doesn't escalate further. It consolidates what you've learned. Review the log. Read everything you wrote during the previous 3 weeks. Look for 2 patterns, what the alarm predicted that actually happened and what it predicted that never happened. For most people, the result becomes very clear. The anticipated catastrophes almost never occur. Real outcomes are neutral or even positive, far more often than the alarm suggested. That's the most important data in this entire process, not theory, your own documented experience. A letter to the waiting adult. Write a short letter to the younger version of you who installed the alarm, the child who learned that making mistakes in public was dangerous. It doesn't have to be long. Something like, I understand why you built this system. It made sense back then. But I need you to know that we survived, and now I have resources you didn't have. Write it by hand, not on a keyboard. It matters more than you might think. No one else needs to see it. Items 9 and 10. Try the last 2 items on your list, the hardest ones. Not because you must complete everything in 30 days, but because the attempt itself tells your nervous system something important. I can step into this. This doesn't destroy me. Imperfect counts. Trying counts. What to expect after 30 days. Social anxiety won't disappear. What changes is your relationship with it. The alarm will still go off sometimes, but now you'll be able to observe it without being pulled along automatically, and you'll have enough evidence to know that its predictions are often wrong. You may notice that you stay in conversations you used to leave early, that you send work with less compulsive rereading, that you speak before the moment disappears, not all at once. Not every time, but more often than before. And more often than before is enough for the system to keep updating. 3 lines on paper. That's all this process really needs to begin. Not a perfectly planned 30 days, not the perfect journal, not a carefully crafted exposure list. Just 3 lines. Tonight, picture Anna. She's 29. She works from home, which eased her social anxiety in some ways, but also removed the small, natural exposures that used to happen during a normal workday. Today, she went to a building meeting, 11 people in the room. She stayed silent the entire time. There was one moment she almost spoke. The building manager asked if anyone had suggestions about the generator schedule. Anna had a reasonable suggestion. The alarm went off. She stayed quiet. That night, she grabs a random notebook, not a special one, just the half-used one she already had for work. She opens to a blank page and she writes, "Building meeting. Alarm went off when the manager asked for suggestions. My mind predicted I'd say something wrong. People would think I didn't understand the issue. There would be an awkward silence. What actually happened? I stayed quiet. The meeting continued. Nobody went anywhere. The generator will stay on the same schedule. 3 lines. Anna closes the notebook. She didn't solve her social anxiety. She wasn't brave today. She didn't do the exposure she probably needed, but she did the only thing that matters at this moment. She paused. She looked. She named what happened. Next week, when the manager asks for suggestions again, the space between impulse and behavior might be 1 second wider. Maybe she'll speak, maybe she won't. But the data is there now, recorded, accumulating, slowly updating the system. That's how this begins, not with heroics. With 3 lines on paper, you made it all the way here. That already says something about you, because people who fear judgment often don't finish things. They stop halfway when it gets uncomfortable, when it starts to feel too big, when that quiet voice says, "This isn't for you," but you stayed. That matters. So I want you to leave with one thing clear in your mind. The fear of judgment is not who you are. It's something you learned. It's a system that was installed at a moment in your life when it made sense, by a younger version of you who was doing the best they could with what they had. For years, that system tried to protect you, but it's time to update the protocol. You don't need perfect courage. You don't need to wake up tomorrow free of anxiety. You don't need to become a different person. You need 3 lines on paper tonight, 1 micro exposure tomorrow, a week of observations, 1 conversation you've been avoiding, a letter written by hand to the person you used to be, step by step, piece of evidence by piece of evidence. The nervous system learns slowly, but it does learn. And remember this, the shadow has a name, and when something has a name, it starts to lose its power. You just named yours, so now go. Grab a notebook, start tonight, and if this video found you at the moment you needed it, share it with someone who might need it too. Leave a like so more people can find this, and if you want to keep walking this path, subscribe to the channel. Every week we go deeper into another shadow no one ever taught us how to name. See you next time.